What's up, everyone? We got another NFL offseason recap video. Today, we're going to be looking at the Denver Broncos, how their season went last year, what they've done so far in free agency, and what they should be looking for in the draft. The Broncos may have overachieved last year given the lack of talent that they had. Despite losing star pass rusher Bradley Chubb to an ACL tear, as well as trading away number one receiver Emmanuel Sanders to the Niners, they still finished 7-9 and 3-3 in their own division and held their own against some of the other playoff teams. First year head coach Vic Fangio did experience some struggles early on, going 0-4 in his first four games, but he did a solid job after breaking in with his new team. Rookie quarterback Drew Lock took over for Joe Flacco midway through the season and beat teams like the Vikings, the Chargers, and the Raiders, and he finished 4-1 as a starter, and he should be the starter for the foreseeable future. Now, the offense as a whole was very stagnant. The O line was good in run blocking, but terrible in pass protection, with big ticket free agent Jawan James being hurt the whole year and Garrett Bowles still holding on to his holding problems. They finished 26th in offensive DVOA as they had no receiving threats outside of Cortland Sutton and the two headed monster of Philip Lindsay and Royce Freeman, as they both slowed down towards the end of the season in the run game. Now, Pat Shurmur was hired to be the offensive coordinator this past offseason. Now, the defense was much better as it was led by Fangio, and they had studs that led the team in safety Justin Simmons and linebacker Alexander Johnson, who both had outstanding years, and Simmons especially in his contract year. Now, the defense finished 13th in defensive DVOA as a result. Before free agency started, the Broncos made two big moves to bolster their secondary. First, they traded for AJ Bouye by giving a 2020 fourth round pick to the Jaguars. Now, this will only be a value trade if Bouye can recreate his 2017 form with the Jaguars, and if he still has the ability to handle number one receivers. In the AFC West, you have guys like Tyreek Hill, Keenan Allen, Tyrell Williams, Mike Williams, that you need to be able to put one corner on and shut down. In Chicago, when Fangio was the defensive coordinator, he had Kyle Fuller to man that role, so he's hoping that AJ Bouye will be able to do that this year with the Broncos. Now, the Broncos also made an expected move and franchise tag Justin Simmons, as they couldn't come to a long-term deal. Now, this is a great move that keeps a star safety in Denver and prevents him from going to another team like the Raiders or the Chiefs, who are in need of a strong safety or free safety. The Broncos were fairly active during free agency as they beefed up both sides of the ball. The big move was signing former Chargers running back Melvin Gordon to a 2-year deal. Now, in theory, I really see no reason for this signing, as they have two competent running backs in Philip Lindsay and Royce Freeman. Now, the idea is neither of the two are great at receiving out of the backfield, so Melvin will likely be on the field on third downs. But like I said, again, they have three solid running backs, and you don't need three running backs to use, especially in the NFL. Now, I can see why they wanted Melvin, keep him in the division, get those revenge games against the Chargers, and they're most likely to be playing from behind against teams like the Chiefs, so they might want to have a guy that they know they can count on in the receiving game on screens or wheel routes or stick routes. Now, they also traded for Jarrell Casey to beef up their interior D line. Now, I think this is a good move as they have stars like Von Miller and Bradley Chubb coming off the edge. So having guys like Jarrell Casey, as well as re-signing Shelby Harris to a one-year, $3.25 million contract is a good move to make a formidable front seven. Now, the Broncos also signed big-ticket offensive lineman Graham Glasgow from the Lions for a four-year, $44 million contract to improve their interior O-line to basically replace Connor McGovern, who went to the Jets. Then they just added more depth everywhere by signing guys like Jeff Driscoll to a two-year, $5 million contract, Nick Vanette to a two-year, $5.5 million contract, Jeremiah Tachu, who had a solid year last year when Bradley Chubb went down, as well as Devontae Bosby to really hold that number two corner spot, especially with Chris Harris gone. Well, the Broncos didn't let too many people go. They made some moves like trading Andy Janovich, a fullback, to the Browns for a 2020 seventh round pick. They also lost guard Connor McGovern to a big deal to the Jets. They lost depth pass rusher Derek Wolfe to the Ravens, and I think this was a move that was needed because they were able to get Jarrell Casey from the Titans, so they didn't really need Wolfe anymore. Now, the big one that they lost is Chris Harris Jr. to the Chargers. Chris Harris Jr. was the guy that Fangio trusted in man coverage to really lock down the number one. So they're really just replacing him with Bouye. And you might think that Chris Harris was an animal in the slot, which he was, and I think he's going to do well in that role with the Chargers. But the Broncos are about to get Bryce Callahan back from a broken foot. And if you don't know who Callahan is, he's a stud slot corner who came from the Bears along with Fangio at the same time. So you know Fangio is going to have trust in Callahan to man that slot role. in the AFC West, where we have guys like Hunter Renfro or Keenan Allen playing in the slot, so they're gonna really need a good slot corner, which they already have in Bryce Callahan. And finally, safety Will Parks went to the Eagles. Now on to the draft. Well, the biggest need for the Broncos is wide receiver, wide receiver, wide receiver. And in this star wide receiver draft, the Broncos need to choose a receiver at 15. Now, they will likely have the ability to take one of the top four receivers in Jerry Jeudy, Henry Ruggs, CeeDee Lamb, or T. Higgins, unless teams like the Eagles or Packers don't go crazy and start trading up with teams like the Bucks. Now, they really need to be able to air it out in the high scoring AFC West, so possibly double dipping in the draft wouldn't be a bad idea. In my mind, I see the best receiver for them as Henry Ruggs, just to have a speed demon outside of Courtland Sutton, who's more of a possession, big body receiver. And Drew Lock does have a big arm, so he'll be able to get it to Ruggs and on the fly. And then in Mile High City, the ball's going to fly in the air with all the altitude up there. And Henry Ruggs would likely fit their team the best. They could also take a big bodied receiver like T. Higgins to pair up well with Courtland Sutton in the first round, while also double dipping with someone like Jalen Reagor in the second or possibly third round. And other than that, the Broncos should look to get another starting number two corner outside of Bouye and Callahan, as guys like Devontae Bosby aren't the most reliable, so you might want to pick up a rookie in the second or third round. And also, other possible options to draft are getting another linebacker to play middle or outside next to Alexander Johnson, and more D linemen in case their guys are getting older and suffering more injuries. That is all for this NFL offseason recap video. Don't forget to like, comment what you think the Broncos record is going to be in 2020 and who you think they should draft, and subscribe.